there is questions coming up later on where people share some of their disaster stories from borrowing handbags or lending their handbags to people. Welcome to you, my name's Dale and this is Dale's Addiction. Today's video, the very uncomfortable topic of lending out your wonderful, expensive, exquisite, delicate luxury handbags to friends and family, and borrowing them also from perhaps your own friends and family. I asked a number of questions on Instagram prompted by Susan. Hi Susan, we often have a little bit of a chat in the DMs on Instagram about all things luxury. She's not a fan of my furry dad sandals, she hates them, and I'm not offended. We all like different things. So thanks for the great inspiration for this video, Susan, and I thought, well, I can tell you what my opinion is, but I thought I'd add it to the collective opinions of our little community here. So I asked you on Instagram, tell me, would you let your friends or fam borrow your luxury bags? Yes, of course, 61 votes, which equated to about 16% of the vote. Maybe, depending on the value of the bag, 141 votes, which was about 38% of the votes. And hell no was 170 votes, which was 46%. So by far the highest response to that question. So, look, I think if I'm to answer this question, it's maybe. It's a maybe, because I have lent my luxury handbags to friends and family. And when I was thinking about the situations where I've done this, there were some commonalities in each of those situations. So the first one that I will talk to, is shoved under here in storage, is my Louis Vuitton GM Neverall. So a big workhorse bag. I bought this pre-loved, and I bought it pre-loved because I wanted that beautiful honey patina. I wanted it to be already somewhat worn in so that I wouldn't be worried about doing all of that. And it's been the perfect bag for what I bought it for, which is to travel with, to carry lots of heavy things with, and not really to worry too much. I think I got it for about $1,000, and it was 10 years old when I got it. That bag, I had zero problems at all lending that bag to Connor on his Paris trip this year. He didn't even ask. I said, you need a tote. Why don't you take my Neverall? And he was like, oh, are you sure? And I said, yes, I am sure. I think you should take it if you want it. And the reason that it was so easy for me to do that without even second guessing is, one, Connor knows the value of these pieces because he owns his own luxury handbags, and I think that's probably something, and as I go through the responses as to why people wouldn't lend out their bags, it's probably one of the big concerns that we all have, is that if people don't actually understand the value associated with things, they, are probably less educated around, well, what the replacement cost's going to be, what some of the danger zones are for these bags, like being close to candles, being in the rain, maybe getting swiped from an airport if you're not watching, those sorts of things. So because he has his own bags, I know that he knows the value. Because he has his own bags, I know he knows how to take care of them. Because he consigns bags, I know that he knows how popular they are. He gets to see a lot more bags than what someone who has a collection has, because they're things that he wouldn't necessarily buy. So he's very informed, let's say. So no big deal. And I guess at the end of the day, even though it went without saying, I was happy for this bag to come back and, have some fair wear and tear, which I can't imagine what that would be, but it wasn't going to be a big deal. But I know, even though we didn't talk about it, if that bag was stolen or something happened, I know that he would just replace it like for like, and it wouldn't even be a conversation. So, that made it easy for me. In other situations, nobody, and here's one of the critical things, nobody has ever actually asked me to borrow a luxury handbag, and I think that has made a difference. I'm typically the one offering. So my stepdaughter, for her, I think it was her 21st birthday dinner, I said, do you want to take one of my bags? And she picked the bag that she wanted to take, and I just said to her, look, you know, just keep it away from the table, and she put it where mine was. She knows about things. She doesn't own any, but she knows about them. She knows to take care of them. She picked what she wanted, which at the time I think was the twist bag from Louis Vuitton in the epi leather, which is a pretty robust bag anyway. But it made like a nice special touch for the night, and I was really happy to do that. Another one of my good friends, we were going out for lunch here, and I said, do you want to take one of my bags? And she's like, oh yeah, righto. And she took the Louis Vuitton trunk clutch, which I still have, this one. And again, in terms of choice, this is one that's a pretty easy one to lend to people. Now, again, she has some luxury handbags. She knows how to care for them. She is respectful of my things. She has the means, if needed, to replace it if anything bad was to happen. And her and I believe, you know, we're good and decent people. We know what the right thing to do is. And it was not, I didn't even, you know, we were together, yes, on both of those occasions. So I suppose there's a bit of peace of mind, but ultimately I didn't have to worry. So they're the occasions in which I have lent out my luxury handbags. When I asked the next question on this topic was, if you would let them borrow, what are your rules? And some of the responses to this one were really good. Rule number 1, don't ask. You can't borrow my bags. Another one, don't leave the house. Don't even ask. And I think there's this, I heard it on a podcast once about there are 2 types of people in the world. There are people who guess and people who ask. And I am definitely a guesser. I am not the person who asks somebody to come and help me move house on the weekend. I wonder if they might, but I don't ask. And then if people offer and say, hey, do you want a hand? I've got a trailer. I could come and help you with X, Y, and Z. Like, oh, that's really lovely. Thanks so much. But I would never ask. I would never ask. And I have a difficulty with people who do ask you to do things like that. Like, hey, they trap you. What are you doing next weekend? Oh, not much. Why? Do you reckon you could come and help me move house all day, Saturday? How do you answer that? Do you say, well, I said not much because I hadn't made any plans because I wanted to make plans and they are much more appealing to me than moving house. Like, you're kind of trapped, and for that I feel a little, I have to say, icky about the askers. I'd prefer that people guess and then you're open to giving an offer if you want to. This one, don't touch it. If it's my sister borrowing, it's okay. If it's a friend, F no. I trust that my sister would treat the bag like her own. This one here, no rules. So pretty open response there. Again, only my daughter. So I'm thinking there's a lot of people who feel more comfortable with family members. This one, only they get to use it. Treat it like they're carrying a Da Vinci. Bring it back in better condition. Pretty good. I'd let my sister because she's super OCD and because she knows they're my babies. If you damage it, you buy me a new one. And I think that's probably where most of the reluctance to borrow your luxury bags comes from, is this whole concept of that conversation when something bad happens. And there is questions coming up later on where people share some of their disaster stories from borrowing handbags or lending their handbags to people. Is that, how do you go about insisting with somebody who's perhaps not as generous to replace or repair your bag? And what impact does that have on your friendship or family relationship moving forward? Don't mess up my bag. No stains or scuffs, no damage, no odours, nothing. Never set it down. I think that's probably a nice easy rule. Like, if it's a crossbody or something, make sure it's on you. If it's handheld, make sure it's on you. I think if you're not so aware of the value and perhaps the value that other people see in it, you might be taken advantage of in terms of someone stealing it. The borrower must have a fabulous outfit to match the bag, and if it's raining, there's no borrowing happening. No food or drinks allowed inside the bag, and no loose keys. So this concept of using pouches and things to protect both the inside of the bag and also, you know, not having food or drinks potentially spilling or staining the bag. You break it, you pay for it. Don't lose it, or you need to buy me a replacement. And if she gets rained on, just wipe her down. I think they're really realistic and good tips. Can you hear that? Mr. Addiction knows I'm filming right now. This one, no drinking alcohol. Tipsy means carelessness. Yes. Nick, I'm going to name you Nick J. Snell. Nick has got a fabulous YouTube channel. He says, if you break it, you pay for it. And also, you're not allowed to look better than me when you're using it. I love that. That's fantastic. A lot of people saying, just my bags cannot be borrowed. Return it in the condition you got it, and don't pack it in your suitcase. Hand luggage only. Another great tip. I think these are all things that we probably in the luxury community think they go without saying, but if you're not someone who has luxury handbags, you might not think twice about it. If you're using it, it's because I gave it to you permanently. So there's no lending here. It's just I'm giving it to you and then it's yours. Please, no makeup directly in the bag. Use a small catchall to house them or a Ziploc bag. Yeah. Again, another really great tip when you're lending out your bags. I might summarize these in the comments because I think you'd find this is a good copy and paste for any interactions you're having with people. Bit of a contract, so to speak. Please don't put it on the floor. I would lend a handbag holder too if needed so that it wouldn't go on the floor. Here's one. I've done it before. The main rule is we go out together so I can keep an eye on it. Daughters only. Bring it back in the perfect condition in which I gave it to you. I'll only allow my sister and my mum, and I will ask them to look after the bag and preserve it. Only for an event, not daily use. I like this one. Treat it like a newborn. That's pretty clear. Not to be involved in drunken escapades. I let my friends and family borrow all my bags if they wanted, events especially, but not festivals. But if I had a Birkin, they wouldn't be allowed that, but the rest would be fine. It has to be a wipeable bag, this one. That's hilarious. They lose or damage it, they have to repair or replace it. I have to feel comfortable with the place they are taking it. For example, no pubs or nightclubs, etc. The material of the bag is something that's considered and the responsibility of the person. The daughters, again, are getting a lot of implied trust. How much time you got? I guess the main thing would be treat it like your own, please. Lots of people saying treat it like a newborn, and definitely not an Hermes bag. I just lent a friend's daughter a Fendi baguette for her grade 6 graduation. Isn't that cute? So lots of good advice in there in terms of the conditions with which you would consider lending a friend or family member a handbag. Now, the next question I asked was, if you said, hell no, ain't nobody borrowing my bags, why not? These are really interesting responses. They kind of touch on what I spoke about before. Because I like to keep my friends, and after they mess up my bag, we ain't friends no more. Vachetta, because they're mine. Too stressful for both parties. It feels like borrowing someone's underwear. It's my personal item. I love that one. If any damage, I wouldn't want them to feel obligated to replace, but I would feel sick at the loss of my bag. If something happens to the bag, they would have to replace or repair it, and this emoji. I want to remain friends. I'm worried they won't be careful. I paid too much to make it a community bag. I don't even share my bags with my mum, and she don't store the bags well after use. They're special and they're pricey. Fine with scratches and dirtiness that I did, but not so much if someone else did it. This one, I'm too OCD. No one else will look after and appreciate the bag like I do. I'd be so pissed off it was ruined. Bye-bye friendship. They belong to me. My bag and my rules. Probably would be sad if something happened to it, even if it's only a tiny spot. If I can't trust them with a book or a DVD, they're definitely not getting one of my bags. My friends are sloppy. I would only trust my sisters. Oh, these are so funny. Because they're mine and people have a tendency not to care for others' things. Yeah, I agree. Having owned rental property or investment property, the amount of money you spend repairing things that you just wonder why people, if they owned that house themselves, would they treat your property, their property, like that? I don't know. Because if something were to happen to it, they would just say, sorry, and then I'd be heartbroken. Possible damage, possibly not replaceable. I'm a germaphobe and I don't like others in my bags. No one cares about your stuff as much as you care about it. I work hard to get my bags. I wouldn't want someone else damaged or lost my precious. They're very precious to me. They did not invest the time and money to get the bag. My bags are my babies and I don't expect my friends to loan me their kids. Accidents happen, and I'd rather be the only one at fault if something happens to the bag. They are presenting an image with luxury handbags they do not own. This one's really interesting. So, as in, I guess it's like renting a bag though. Yeah, that's an interesting one. The thought makes me start channeling Golem. My precious. I like my things to look perfect. No to suede in case they damage it. No to all Chanel. I've seen the way they treat their own items and hell no they are treating my bags that way. My friends have no interest in luxury and no clue of the price. A handbag will not be treated as it should. I ain't trust you. I borrowed my favourite CD to a classmate in school. I got it back with the cover broken. And as a result, I will not borrow my luxury handbags. I would feel sick the whole time they had it. It's too stressful. I don't want to put them in a predicament where accidental damage is done to the bag. Trust no one. I do not trust anyone with my such expensive handbags. No one I know would appreciate them and be in the position to replace a damaged item. They are really interesting insights, and I think if we're to summarise those, there's a trust issue, there's a how much time and money that we put into purchasing those pieces, and there's a lack of understanding of how precious they are to us from those people around us, and perhaps not just understanding but also respect. And finally, what you've all been waiting for. What are your bag borrowing disaster stories? Either you borrowed or a friend borrowed from you and something went wrong. I lent my mum a Gucci bag and she left a pen without the lid on in there. It was covered in pen marks. Oh, goodness me. Oh, my daughter borrowed a bag for a wedding and left it on the car roof. And that was that. Oh, no. You know what happens when you drive off and it eventually falls off and some other car runs over it? Oh, that is terrible. I borrowed a bag from my parents and broke a compartment. What did you do? Oh no. My sister put my bag on the floor at a bar to look in her pockets. It got scuffed. Oh, that's horrifying. My stepdaughter used my vintage Dior without permission and her foundation leaked and stained it. Oh my goodness. R.I.P. to the stepdaughter and the bag. I let my daughter borrow a Chanel classic flap and she scratched the hell out of it. Oh no. Oh, these are terrible. And like, I know you're going, surely you've read these, Dale? No, I just screenshot it all and then I did this video. So, oh, my daughter borrowed my beaded Fendi bag and the beads fell out. This is just like a eulogy for all the bags we lost. I lent my stepdaughter a YSL clutch. She had foundation on her hands, which transferred. Oh dear. Oh my goodness. They are just horrendous, horrendous stories. Have you ever lent bags out? And what's been your experience? And have you borrowed bags yourself? Because I asked if people would borrow a bag from a friend, and about 12% of people said yes, and I have a few times. 6% said yes and only once. 10% said no, but I thought about asking, and 72% said no way, I'd be too nervous if I damaged it. So I think in this little niche of the YouTube community, and if you're not typically in this little niche and you don't understand what we're talking about, chance to say that you think that I'm mad, and probably all the people in the comments that have commented by now when you're watching it are mad. We're not mad. We spend a lot of money on these things, and that's because they mean something to us. They're a part of our wardrobe, they're a part of our lifestyle, they're a part of our brand, and they're not to just be given away like a biscuit at a dinner party. Who's eating biscuits at dinner parties? I don't know, but you know what I mean. It's each to their own, and I think if you're an asker and you're asking people and putting them in that position, I think that's not okay. I think if you want to offer it to somebody, then you do so, and you can't caveat that. Like, that's you know, extending trust. Some things just go unsaid. But if you're considering offering a bag to somebody to wear, then I think you can talk about the conditions and say, listen, I'd like to give you the opportunity to borrow one of my bags for your special occasion. Now, there's a few things that we would need to agree on before we decided which bag and, you know, what the care plan is for that piece and what would happen if that bag was damaged or what have you, and just have an upfront conversation about it rather than assuming things, because I think that is kind of helpful for the relationship. So this video has gone on way longer than I thought it would. I'll have to edit it and tidy it up, because I'm sure you won't be hanging around for the 27 minutes and 25 seconds that I've been recording for now. But I'd love to know what your experiences have been and which of these responses really stuck out to you. Give this video a thumbs up if you found it remotely entertaining, enjoyable, or informative. Ding! And subscribe if you haven't already. I'd love to see you for my next video, typically a Wednesday or a Sunday. But until then, ciao.